I would agree that it's a big first step. Ultimately, it's going to come down to every individual client kind of changing their own internal policies to be more receptive of trainees.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out with you on a beautiful day outside and not so beautiful inside for me and my guest, from what I hear. I might sound a little different to you today. I was told by my guest I have a deep, thundery voice today, and that's not because I'm practicing my radio voice. I'm not trying to sound like Tim Anderson. It just is my normal voice today, which is not normal. I don't typically get sick, but a little cold bug struck me last night and came full force today. But we have an important topic to talk about today, so the show must go on. I'm going to introduce my guest in just a little bit, but first I want to remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies, one of them being OREP Insurance. OREP, of course, is the E&O that I use, and there's a reason. I shop around, and I choose OREP year after year, and I'll tell you one of the great reasons why coming up. But right now, you can go to your computer and type in orep.org. That's orep.org. We're sponsored by DataMaster. DataMaster, of course, is how I save 30 to 60 minutes per report. Now, I have 5 MLSs. Unfortunately, it only works on 2, but I sure love the 2 that it works on. It saves me time, saves me money. We'll do the same for you. Go to datamasterusa.com. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. And finally, we are sponsored by Alamode. Of course, Alamode is the software that I use to make sure that everything is done efficiently in my office. They have all of the tools that I need as an appraiser, including mobile. Check them out. Go to alamode.com, or you can pick up the phone and talk to a real person and ask all the questions that you want. It's 800-ALAMODE, or again, alamode.com. All right, folks, we're going to dive right into this. I want to introduce the friend of the program, somebody who has been on multiple times and a good friend of mine. He is the editor of WorkingRE Magazine. His name is Issac Peck. And Isaac, welcome back to the program, my friend.
Hey, Dustin, thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate you being on. Isaac, you recently put together a very important and very timely article on Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019. You call it a pivotal point for appraisers. Isaac, why did you write this? What's going on in the appraisal world? Why are we talking about this today?
Well, this is an important law that was passed by the House of Representatives in Congress. It's currently being considered by the Senate, and there's a number of things in here that affect the industry and that appraisers should know about and I think care about.
Okay, cool. And the listeners on my program know that I often record podcasts far in advance. They're never live, of course. That's not the nature of podcasting, but typically it can be weeks, months before we air a show, and typically that topic is still timely in a couple weeks, couple months. This is even more timely, and thus we are recording it the same week that we will produce it and put it out there on Sunday. So for those of you who are listening to this, just know that this is a very important and very timely process going on right now. So this is recorded live as of the week of October 23rd, 24th, 25th, right in there. So this is something that we can do, and we're going to talk about how to get involved here near the end of the program. But let's go through this a little bit. First of all, I want to introduce everybody to the article that you wrote, Isaac. It is, again, called Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019, a pivotal point for appraisers. And you can find that at WorkingRE.com. You just need to go to WorkingRE.com and just type in Appraisal Fee Transparency Act, and you will find it. All right, so Isaac, let's talk about, there's obviously many sections to any bill that's put forth in Congress, but there's some specific sections that you bring out in this article because these are really the ones that we need to be most aware of. If you don't mind, Isaac, let's just run through each of those sections, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's start with Section 2. Tell me about Section 2 and what it means. Let's talk about, first of all, what it means, and then when we get back from the sponsorship, we'll talk more about why appraisers should care.
So Section 2 allows the Appraisal Subcommittee, or the ASC, to establish a new formula for fees in regard to the AMC registry.
Okay, explain what that means. Appraisal Subcommittee has flexibility in AMC registry fees. We're not talking about appraiser registry fees. We're talking about companies who are AMCs when they register with their state. The Appraisal Subcommittee has flexibility in those fees. What's changing here?
Right. So going back to some of the earlier regulatory requirements, AMCs, the ASC was required to establish an AMC registry nationwide and charge fixed registry fees to every AMC. And that just got implemented, I believe, last year. Okay. That's created a number of complaints from AMCs and in some cases appraisers because it's an additional regulatory burden. It increases the cost of the AMCs having to pay all these registry fees. And the argument there would be that those costs are then passed on to appraisers.
Okay. Well, so, and that again gets into how this affects appraisers, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more. But I'm glad you said something there because I think most appraisers are going to say, so what? AMCs have to pay a registry fee, boo-hoo, right? But it does obviously trickle down to the appraiser. We'll dive into that. Let's talk about Section 3. What's Section 3 of this bill?
So Section 3 requires the ASC to place appraiser trainees on the appraiser registry. So I'm not sure if most appraisers know, but the ASC keeps a registry of every licensed appraiser or credentialed appraiser in the country. It's available by state on their website. And so this Section 3 would require that trainees also be placed on that registry. And that specifically affects trainees, because lenders often, if lenders are even going to consider working with a trainee, they need a way to look that trainee up. Who is this person? Do they, can we verify that they are even a trainee or, connected to the appraisal profession in some way? And placing trainees on the ASC registry will help lenders be more accepting of trainees in this profession.
Okay, yeah. As you mentioned, I don't know how many appraisers are aware. I hope they're aware that their names are out there, obviously listed on the ASC registry. But currently, if you've got a trainee and you go to an AMC, for example, and say, "Hey, I'd like my trainee to be able to help out on this deal." Okay, what's your trainee's name? John Doe. They type it in, nothing comes up, and as far as they're concerned, John Doe isn't an appraiser because it's not coming up on the ASC registry. This would change that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's designed specifically to help lenders be more comfortable with you using trainees in your assignment.
I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to come back to Section 4 in just a second. Section 5. This one's a little bit confusing. Adds a designee from the VA, the Veterans Administration, to the ASC. What does that mean? Who cares, really? Or should they?
I mean, this gives the Department of Veteran Affairs, a representative at the table at the Appraisal Subcommittee, and I think that's probably a good thing for appraisers because the Department of Veteran Affairs has been very, I would argue, good to appraisers. They pay some of the highest fees in the industry if you're comparing, to AMCs, and that they've had a long-standing relationship with the appraisal industry, and so that's why it might be important.
Okay, awesome. Okay, all right, let's talk about Section 4, Isaac. This is, of course, the one that kind of a big deal, definitely a big deal. Explain to us what Section 4 is all about.
So Section 4 is it gets to the name of the bill, the Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019, and it requires a breakout between what is paid to the appraiser and what is paid to the AMC. And it goes back and it amends RESPA, which is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, and it makes it mandatory that appraiser fees and AMC fees be separated on the disclosures when consumers go to get a loan.
So are we talking about the paperwork before they get the loan? Are we talking about the HUD-1? Do they specify where this is going to be broken out?
So there's still a bit of debate on how that's actually going to happen. A number of people are interpreting the law as it's being proposed that it would apply to both the closing estimate and the closing disclosure. So when you first apply to a loan, they would need to disclose the appraisal fee and the AMC fee as being separate. And then again, when you go to close the loan and you get the closing disclosure, they would have to disclose it again. So the loan estimate and the closing disclosure, it would need to be separated. But there's a bit of debate on whether, it's actually going to get passed that way or what's going to happen now.
Right. Okay. Very good. Okay. So we've talked about the main sections. Of course, there's other sections as well. And we would encourage, of course, any listener to go and you can actually read the bill. I don't know how many people get involved in the legislative process. I think we all should be involved, but you can simply Google these things and get right in there. Of course, it is H.R. 3619, already passed the House. And the next steps, of course, are to go to the Senate and then to the President for signature, which we will talk about a little bit when we get back from the break. I want to pause here and, of course, remind you that we are sponsored by 3 great companies. Now, one of those great companies, Isaac Peck has a little bit to do with, and that is OREP Insurance. Now, I want to just explain for just a second why OREP is so important and why I talk about it so often. Not only are they our sponsor here, folks, but this is the E&O that I use. Now, I know a lot of appraisers year after year, they just kind of renew, right? Their renewal comes up, they look and they say, well, okay, maybe it's a little bit more than last year. All right, I'll write out the check. I'm too busy. I don't really need to look into this. We don't shop around for insurance. Folks, we should shop around for our insurance. Think about what E&O is, okay? And hopefully it's something we never need. Just like fire insurance, we hope we don't need it, but we're glad we have it. But it's not just insurance. OREP is so much more than that. If you go to orep.org, that's OREP.org, you will find multiple benefits there on their page. Now, these are benefits that are beyond what you get with your initial insurance. Okay, and these are benefits that are different than the competition. I'll give you an example. Recently, I was looking to get my certification renewed for my appraisal license in 3 states, folks. And I'm looking around, of course, for CE, for continuing education. I've got to do a certain number, as all of us do, on a yearly basis. And I found an email from OREP indicating that I could take 14 hours of free education online. I thought, come on, really? 14 hours of free FREE education? Well, folks, not only did I take that free education, I found it to be very informative, very well done. In fact, my good friend Tim Anderson taught one of the classes, and I enjoyed, of course, his soothing, thunderous voice as we went through the process. And folks, not only did I get a great education, but I also got CE credits in all 3 of those states. Check them out. Go to orep.org. That's OREP.org to find out why they are different than other E&O companies. We are sponsored, of course, by Alamode. Alamode is the software that I've been using for, 23, 24 years now, okay, over 2 decades. They've, of course, been in business for over 3 decades, helping appraisers to do more, helping appraisers to be more efficient. Now, if you're a self-employed individual like myself, okay, running a business, running a small business, time is money. And that's what translates when I use Alamode. Alamode, folks, will help me to save much time on my appraisal work and to have a higher quality product. They are the leader in the appraisal form filling software. Check them out. Go to alamode.com, or you can call them at 800-ALAMODE. Finally, speaking of saving time, we are sponsored here, of course, by DataMaster. DataMasterUSA.com is where you go to find out about DataMaster 6. Now, the original versions of DataMaster are still out there, and they're great, and they're wonderful, but rolling across the country right now is DataMaster 6. DataMaster 6 is so much more. Folks, I'm telling you, you're going to want to do all of your adjustments and everything else, the analysis side, before you import into your software. Yes, that's right. That's what DataMaster 6 will allow you to do. Look at multiple photos. You don't have to go back into your MLS to say, gee, what was the condition? What was the quality? They're right there as you download into DataMaster. That's just one of the things that DataMaster 6 will allow you to do. Again, check them out. Go to DataMasterUSA.com. It's DataMasterUSA.com. All right, folks, we are back, and we're talking with the editor of WorkingRE Magazine, Mr. Isaac Peck. Mr. Peck, welcome back.
Thanks again for having me, Dustin.
You know, you sound like, you ever listen to the podcast Stuff You Should Know?
No, I don't think I have.
You need to, because you sound like Chuck. When I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to Chuck. Now you're going to have to go back and listen.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to the program. You, of course, are the editor of WorkingRE Magazine, and there is a great article that just came out this week talking about a very timely topic, and that is the Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019. And we've talked a little bit about what it is. And now, if you don't mind, Isaac, we're going to dive in and talk about what it means to appraisers. Okay. You begin the article with this line, quote, "Keep your eyes open. Events are happening fast." Okay. Is this sensationalism, or is this really a big deal to appraisers?
No, I think that this law has the potential to really change the industry, and it's very impactful in terms of what it might do. And the other reason that I say that is because, you know, we're really not sure if it's going to pass, especially in its current form. I mean, even now as we're talking, there are all kinds of rumors that people on the banking side and the AMC side are against the specific provision of fee transparency, and they're working to get it changed and get it removed.
Gee, I can't imagine, really. Boy, shocking.
So at this point, you know, things can change any day now, and there's really no guarantee that the bill's going to get approved by the Senate and move forward, or that the fee transparency provision will remain in the bill.
Okay. And I think obviously that's the big one, and I'm going to leave that one for last here. Let's talk about each section. We've talked about what they are. Now let's talk a little bit about why they matter to appraisers. As a reminder, Section 2 is the AMC registry fees. And you kind of alluded to it before, the change in the AMC registry fees. Why does this matter to the average appraiser?
I think it really helps AMCs mostly, but the reducing fees to AMCs helps free up the market a bit, and might prevent a lot of those fees from being passed on to appraisers, or at least that's the hope.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing here. I think that most, as we kind of shadowed this earlier, most appraisers, I think, would look at this and say, I don't care what AMCs pay, charge them an arm and a leg. But if you understand economy, you understand economics, you understand that trickles down, of course, to the appraisers themselves. You know, as far as the types of fees that we're being paid, if an AMC has to pay more, then they're gonna pay us less. It's just a matter of dollars and cents. So I think this is a big deal, and I think appraisers need to be aware. Okay, Let's skip down, if we can, into Section 5 for just a second. You talked a little bit about this. This is, of course, bringing VA to the table. I've been doing work for VA for a couple years now. You know, other than a few hiccups here and there, as you alluded to, they pay very good fees. I would say higher than customary and reasonable, which is typical in my area. They're pretty easy to work with. Again, a couple hiccups here and there, but for the most part, I love my work with the VA. Why do we care that VA has a table at the appraisal subcommittee?
Well, the VA is a very large consumer of appraisal reports, as you know. They have a very warm and supportive approach with appraisers, and you'll find that most appraisers that are on the VA panel, the VA is their favorite client. They pay pretty much towards the top of the range in terms of appraisal fees, and their fee schedules are often looked at as a model nationwide. So I think having them as a stakeholder and giving them a seat at the ASC is a good thing for appraisers.
Good, yeah. I mean, obviously we can't allude to what may or may not happen there, but VA has a lot of really cool things. For example, the Tidewater Initiative, I love that. The opportunity to full disclosure going in and give opportunity for both sides to come to the table when it looks like a willing buyer and a willing seller have agreed on a price, and for some reason the market isn't supporting that price. There is a process to go through. So I love that. I would hope to see some of those things implemented throughout the industry, and maybe this is the first step along the road to that. Most people, of course, are focused on Section 4, and I'm glad because we're going to talk about Section 4 in just a little bit. But Isaac, I have to tell you, Section 3 for me is an even bigger deal because, of course, my work is with appraisal business owners. My whole thrust as the appraiser coach is to help appraisers to be more profitable, to run more successful businesses, to wake up in the morning and put their CEO hat on rather than their technician hat on first. And it's okay to be both, but being a business owner has to come first. And I have to say, this Section 4 of putting trainees on the registry is a big deal because, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, Isaac, I'd be curious as what your opinion is. That seems to be the first step in moving more toward these big AMCs and even the local clients, allowing trainees to be more involved in the process.
I would agree that it's a big first step. Ultimately, it's going to come down to every individual client kind of changing their own internal policies to be more receptive of trainees. So in the event that this law is passed and that does become, the law of the land, you may not see an immediate kind of shift in the industry. Each lender and each client will have to then review their internal policies, and you may find that that's going to take longer than you think.
Okay, good. Yeah, I appreciate your honesty there. I tend to agree with you. We know forever, I don't think Fannie or Freddie has ever had a restriction on, for example, trainees going out and inspecting a home without their supervisor in tow. I know certain states have certain rules. You've got to do a certain number of hours or a certain number of inspections, or as in the case in the main state that I appraise in, we just need to deem them, quote unquote, competent to go out, however that means, whether that be 2 inspections or 200. It's up to the mentor to make that decision. But in the end, there's no restriction when it comes to Fannie and Freddie, yet we still see a lot of restrictions with the clients. I'm just hoping this will, move the ball forward a little bit. Let's talk about Section 4, my friend. This is, of course, as you pointed out, is the name of the bill, the Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019. Let's talk about fee transparency. This, of course, is splitting the fee. So for example, let's say an AMC, for example, charges a total of $800 for an appraisal, and they pay $500 to the appraiser. They keep $300. That would have to be disclosed in the paperwork. As you mentioned, it's a little bit gray as far as what paperwork we're talking about, but this is a huge step forward for appraisers, right?
Yeah, I certainly think so. And the way that it's being proposed, there are a number of sources that believe that this would apply to both the loan estimate, which is the initial disclosure that a consumer receives when they apply for the loan, as well as the closing disclosure, which would be the final closing document that they sign to consummate the loan. And it would have a number of kind of effects on the industry. The first of which, you would need to disclose to the appraiser up front what the appraiser is going to get paid and what the AMC is going to get paid. And under the current model, a single fee is disclosed to the consumer. So you say, the appraisal is going to be $600. The appraisal is going to be $700. And then the AMC takes that fee and has the ability to go around and shop for the lowest fee appraisal. And that's where we get a lot of the order by email blast and fee shopping, and please submit your lowest bid for this particular assignment. And a lot of that behavior that appraisers complain about a lot, I think, stems from this idea that there's a single fee and it's a zero-sum game in many senses between the appraiser and the AMC, where the lower the fee that the AMC can shop for, and the lower they can get you to accept it, the more that they can keep for themselves. And that has a number of negative side effects, right? Not only does it lead to poor quality appraisals because the AMC is prioritizing the lowest fee, but it also causes the entire appraisal process to take longer because an AMC might hold out for an appraiser who will do it for less. And a number of people have complained that, that sometimes, I'm not sure if you've ever seen this, an AMC will spend a week or more trying to get appraisers to accept a particular assignment at a lower fee.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it all the time. I tend not to lower my prices, and it's interesting how often I will bid, and of course it goes away, and sometimes 10 days later it'll come back, and they say, okay, fine, we'll pay your fee. In other words, I'm thinking they're probably shopping around and trying to find the lowest bidder, unfortunately, and it would be nice to see this go away. I also hate the fact that I show up sometimes to do an inspection, and they've already looked at the paperwork, and they say, well, gee, you're sure being paid a lot to be here for a half hour, right? And I have to explain to them, being careful about confidentiality, that, hey, whatever you saw on that paper, I don't get that number. And by the way, the real hard work comes after I leave your house. And having this conversation, it would be nice if they understood that there is a middleman being paid there as well. So, what else, Isaac? What else is in this bill that we have not brought out that appraisers need to be aware of?
Well, I think what you just said is an important point as well, right? That it's really important for the consumer to have this disclosed to them, right? To know the truth about how the appraisal industry is operating, what the appraiser's actually getting paid, and what's being paid to the appraisal management companies. And there's been a lot of talk in the industry lately about how, appraisal fees are too high, and appraisers are making too much. Appraisers are being opportunistic. When there's a lot of demand for appraisal services, for example. And I think that creates a perception among consumers and lenders alike that the appraisal fee that is being paid, the appraisal fee, in quotes, it all goes to the appraiser, right? Instead of, the appraiser gets a piece of it and the AMC gets a piece of it. And I think disclosing that and breaking that out in this way, or really the closer that we can get towards disclosure, is good for the industry. It's good for consumers. It's good for a lot of the stakeholders in this industry.
We're talking with Isaac Peck. He is the editor of WorkingRE Magazine. The article that we've been discussing you can find on WorkingRE.com. It is Appraisal Fee Transparency Act of 2019, pivotal point for appraisers. Isaac, right now it's HR 3619. How can appraisers, and we've obviously talked about why it's important to appraisers, but how does an appraiser get involved in this process?
Yeah, so if you go to WorkingRE.com, the story is going to be right on the home page, and in the story, we've got a list of all of the senators that are going to be responsible for moving this forward. So currently, it's being considered in the Senate by the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. And so we've actually built a page of all of those senators on that committee and their phone numbers and their contact information. And you can visit WorkingRE.com, pull up the story, and click on that page. And if this is an important issue to you and you think it would be good for the industry, you can start contacting your senators and trying to tell them why it's important and why consumers need this disclosure and why it would be good for the appraisal industry.
I'm reading some of the comments here on WorkingRE, and it's good to see appraisers get involved. I actually received a couple of messages from appraisers. One of them sticks out. I received actually last night after we had scheduled to be together here today, Isaac, and the individual had reached out to me and said, Dustin, I've never in my life, I'm a little embarrassed to admit, called my senator or my representative, but I did today. And folks, if you've never been involved in the process, now's the time to get involved. If you don't know who your senator is, Google it. Who is my senator? That's all you have to type in. That's what I typed in as Isaac was talking here, came up with senate.gov/senators/index. And all you have to do is Google who is my senator. Right at the top of the page, once you click on senate.gov, it's find your senators. It's very, very easy. Their phone numbers are there. If you'd rather send them an email, you can do that as well. But get involved in the process and let them know that this is not just important to appraisers, although it is, but it's also important to Joe taxpayer. We saw what happened in 2008, and though this would not solve the problem, it certainly would go a long way to help the problem. So Issac Peck, thank you for being on today. Thank you for bringing up such an important topic and writing this article. Again, WorkingRE is where you find the article. Please read through it, folks. We have only touched the surface today as to what's in this article and things you need to know. Issac, thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me, Dustin. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. You have an open seat at the Appraiser Coach podcast anytime you would like to be on. We love talking with you. Appreciate your great information, folks. Thank you for joining us. Please get involved. Reach out to your senators, especially those who are in the subcommittee that are trying to push this forward, which, again, the names and the phone numbers are found in the article on workingre.com. Appreciate you joining us, folks, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
A pivotal point for appraisers.